Hello everybody, Andy here from Glass Half Dead, the #1 kill team channel on YouTube, unless of course you are aware of any other kill team channel on YouTube, in which case don't look into it, thank you. Today we've got a battle report between the Hive, what are they called, Tyranids, Raveners, and the Adeptus Mechanicus Battleclade. I'm playing the Raveners, so they're on the other side of the board, kind of like as if you're playing the Admech sort of thing. You get it, and it's my standard that I've done the last few times, kind of run down after having played the game. We're going to cut from the table so you get to see every move, and we're going to cut to me back here telling you kind of my thoughts of how the game went. It's kind of, I'm trying to help you learn the game, not in the mechanics but in tactically. Of course these are two new teams. It's the first time I'm doing this sort of battle report for two new teams, so if you don't know the teams yet, obviously go and check out my other videos on this channel that will give you the actual breakdown of the rules. But this is, think of this as, if you want to think of it as a how to play them, think of it as a how to play tactically, as a how to play mechanically. So, also, because they are two new teams, obviously the amount of times I've had to play them is a little bit limited. I'm playing the Raveners this time, and I have this will be my either fourth or fifth game. And so really, in this game, what I was doing was experimenting about how I think they should be played on this matchup, into this team, and on this map layout, and when playing the mission, which was Upload. So Upload, in case you don't know, is where you... I actually really like the mission, so this is cool. The critical op, sorry. And Upload is where you tap a point, and then you get a certain... And then for every tap that you do, you get a point on that objective, and then you can choose when to score the objective, but once you score it, you cannot tap that objective again, but your opponent can still tap it. So if, for example, the middle objective in turn 2, if you think actually that middle's getting swarmed, I don't think I've managed to tap it turn 2, but I don't think I'm going to hold it for turn 3 and 4, you can take your 1 VP from the middle objective, but then it's dead to you. Cool. So I actually really like the tactical decisions that can be made there, not only to gain VP yourself, but also to deny your opponent VP, etc, etc. It's quite fun. Just so you're aware going into it, we will obviously talk a little bit more about tac ops later, but in turn 2 once they're revealed. Oh, I should probably say at this point, I have not beaten the Battleclade as Raveners yet, so keep that in mind. But I think this is the one. Volcus. I'm currently liking to move away from official GW terrain. I'm liking to try different things. The reason I'm doing Volcus is because these are two new teams, and I think it's important that when you're trying to play and learn new teams, you do have a point of reference. I think that if I were to play these two teams on just a completely random Sector Imperialis board, although it would look super cool, I think that we would learn less, and there would be more times you could look at the board and say, oh, well, you could only do that because of this terrain layout, and therefore it's less valid. But at least with Volcus, we all know Volcus is here for at least the next 3 years, obviously, and so we can all use that as a point of reference. Okay, with that said, let's get straight into turn 1, so that you can see what the board looks like, and deployment and all that stuff. First things to note are that in deployment, the Raveners deployed first. They also put a barbed wire right in here, not on the objective, and but on their side of the board, whereas the Battleclade put down a comms device kind of right in the center of the board, just on their side, obviously, as that is what makes it legal. That is going to tell you a few things. It implies that in some way the Tyranids want to stop the enemy coming in through here, and of course the enemy is going to put either their underseer or their auto proxy on the center of the board, so you can start to have an idea of what they're planning to do on both sides. As the Raveners, I picked all of my own faction equipment, and the barbed wire was my scouting step pick. The Battleclade dropped their concealed apparatus faction equipment to take the comms device instead, and part of their covert guises faction equipment, they rolled a 2 on that, and they managed to move up an auto proxy here and a breacher right behind this door. Additionally, their neurocyclic reserve cells, they rolled a 3 for, which is really, really good for them. Going into the strategic gambit step, first things first, I placed a tunnel here in the deployment step, and then going directly forward so it ends up wholly within 5 inches of the 0 tunnel. Clearly just going straight towards the central objective there. Then Strategic Gambit step, I actually rolled a 6 for my Synaptic Link, which gives me +1 CP, so I'm starting with 4 CP, they're starting with 3. And I have my Bell Talon and my Tremor Scythe underground. I've decided to deploy my Prime, my Venom Spitter, and my Wrecker. Looking to the Battleclade deployment, we've got both of their big heroes over here. We've got an auto proxy here, so we know that's going near the comms device. We have a lone flamer there, everything else there. The Techno-Archaeologist over here has visibility on my Wrecker and uses Omniscanner, he uses Seeker of Divine Arcana, uses Omniscanner to Omniscan my Wrecker, which will give everybody that's any sort of attack dice going into this guy has ceaseless. Now, finally, sorry for the scouting step, the Battleclade picked 2 stun grenades, which of course means that for the scout step we both picked equipment. Because I deployed first, that means I get priority. I give them the first move so that when it comes to the initiative roll for turn 2, I win draws. Battleclade moves. Heavy Bolter moves and dashes up to there. Wrecker moves to behind the door. Flamer moves up, tucking in behind the stronghold on their side. Prime just moves to behind here. Underseer moves up. Venom Spitter moves, dashes, whatever he needs to do, and distends dorsal sacks, obviously staying concealed. Flamer shuffles up, choosing to stay just outside of 1 inch of this wall so that I cannot charge him and have to shoot him. Melter moves, dashes through the door, staying concealed. Tremor passes. Reacher moves, dashes to behind the door. Bell Talon passes. That's the Raveners over to counteract, not that they have much to do. Techno-Archaeologist manages to get Gaze of the Omnisire, aka Ceaseless, over on the Fell Talon, and moves, dashes up, just near the door. Also, Proxy Servitor shuffles to the side, making room for the next activation, which is the Heavy Arc Rifle, moving up, preparing for next turn. On a move is a very poorly positioned Automedic who does go through the door, can't quite make it up to where he wants to be next to the Melter, and so just stands there, but of course because my only real range threat is here, he's probably safe. For initiative in turn 2 we both roll a 5, which means the Raveners win the roll off as they draw ties because they allowed the Battleclade to go first, which means that they choose to go first, taking themselves to 5 CP and the Battleclade to 5 as well. The first strategic habit will be the Prime doing Synaptic Link, which he successfully rolls a 3 for, so they go up to 6 CP. The Raveners spend 2 CP from Death from Below and Whipcord Emergence, which means that anybody burrowing or standing on the tunnel gives themselves balanced in melee, balanced in defense dice. Strategic Gambit, of course, is to place your next tunnel. Notice that this tunnel would have been better positioned over here so that you could pop up straight into melee with this guy. However, the actual key for me placing these tunnels is that for turn 3, I want to make sure that I have 20 mil, aka 1 inch, wholly within this stronghold, so that tunnel marker 3 will end up right there and I can pop up on their objective. That is the most key thing to me, and even though this turn I'd like to get there, I don't want to give up this objective as an easy tunnel. Strategic Gambit, the Techno-Archaeologist decides to Seeker of Divine Arcana and does a mission action to drop a beacon on their side of the board. They also then spend 2 CP, 1 for Noospheric Possession, which is going to give them accurate 1 when within 6 inches of a Servitor, although 9 inches if they can get to the comms device. And then also Duty of Reclamation, which is when they're on a point, they get a command reroll. With everything prepped for turn 2, and you know what's coming up, you know who's got initiative, let's take it back to me and my thoughts before going into what is traditionally the biggest, most decisive turn of the game. I think I might have made a mistake. Okay, basically, I was pretty comfortable with kind of ignoring my home objective where I put my Prime. When I then saw how many models the Battleclade was putting into that, I was like, okay, well, I just need to tap it once and then run away. Really, like tap it, score, run away. However, I forgot that the Techno-Archaeologist is able to just do so much stuff. So I suspect that they might be able to score it before I do, and they might then get a kill on my Prime. So I don't know how I'm dealing with that, if I'm entirely honest with you. The mistake there is that the Prime doesn't actually fit underneath the floor of that stronghold. The way I play it is you can move through something even if your model doesn't fit, because your base does, but you can't stop where your model doesn't fit. So I am not able to move my prime to block the door, which otherwise I could do. I could move up and then get a kill and then just block the door, right? That's fine. But my prime can't do that. So there you go. So what I'm thinking is I wait out on the prime. That's my final activation over there. See what the Battleclade does. Maybe they show their hand first, etc, etc. I don't know. And then I will figure out the rest of the board. Suddenly, I'm having to consider that I'm going to be down on crit op. Fine, whatever. It's not what I chose for primary. We all know I chose tac op for primary because that's what everybody picks. So obviously we don't know what the Battleclade has picked. Oh, sorry, we do know what the Battleclade picked because they dropped a beacon as their Secret Divine Arcana, which was a stroke of genius. It means that now they've already scored a VP in the Strategic Gambit step. Why would you not ever do that? Like, that's an amazing ability, isn't it? Damn, they've already scored a VP. I am regretting what I said at the beginning where I said, oh, I think I've got this one. I don't think I've got this one. Not to worry. I have a plan going forwards, sticking to the tunnel. They can't hold their objective. I've gone storm objectives. I'm putting everybody I can on their objective and I'm standing there and I'm just going to tank whatever they do and I hope I tank it well enough. That's my plan. I now don't know. I thought I knew what they were going to do. Maybe I don't. And let's see how I react to that going into turn 2. Very quickly before we get back to the game, I'd like to explain all the gear I'm using. All of these objective markers are from Crossfire Games, who I also use the token caddy from. Although the actual tokens inside are from, and that you can see on the board, are from Buy the Same Token. I think they're nice and vibrant. And then what you see over here barely on screen is my all-in-one travel case. This is something that goes inside a 4-litre really useful box. It does your own custom logo if you want it. You can put your cards up there. It is a dice tray. Not only do I take this everywhere I go when I'm traveling with the game, but I also just use it at home because it means it's a dice tray and you've got all your tokens right there. And I'm using these wound markers, which you should for sure check out. I've actually found them super useful as a way to track wounds, especially when you have 20 wounds on Raveners, am I right? You can find links to all of these items, including discounts for you, using my code. Check the pinned comment and description. Have a good one. Back to the game. Finally, as a strategic ploy, although it acts more like a firefight ploy, because I know I have the initiative, I'm going to, with my Fell Talon, writhe out of sight for a CP, taking me down to 3. Now that is done outside of his activation as it's in the strategy phase still, so all of my buffs from burrowing don't affect me as I am now going into my activation, where I will activate my Fell Talon and charge. Because the burrow was not in my activation, I have my full movement speed, which is going to be 7 inches, plus 2 inches for the charge, which is 9 inches, which is going to go all the way into both of these models back here, which is the Auto Proxy and the Gun Servitor. And then he is going to fight against the Gun Servitor first. We actually both rolled incredibly well on this. The Ravener managed to get 4 crits and a normal, whereas the Gun Servitor rolled a crit and 2 normals, which for both of them is really, really good. As the Ravener went first, which meant that he managed to parry 2 of this guy's attacks and then killing with 3. Didn't even need to do the 3, could have had poison finish him off, so only needed 2. This was a really good fight. Then second attack went into the Auto Proxy. Even with the lethal 5 and shock and severe, ultimately the Auto Proxy still dies in 2 hits, leaving the Fell Talon having taken a total of 8 damage, putting him down to 12 wounds and killing 2 models. Flamer down here doesn't move, shoots at the Fell Talon, and absolutely fluffs the roll, with the Flamer hitting on 2s, rolls 3 1s. However, my standard issue dice, I can never roll a 5 up, occurs, and so I still take the 1 damage that went through, taking the Fell Talon down to 8 wounds remaining. Then shuffles to the side so that it has a better line of sight into here, just in case he wouldn't have visibility, which with these short models is very possible over certain parts of Volcus, but stays out of 3 of the Ravener. Flamer moves up, drops a beacon, staying concealed. Staying concealed, my Wrecker moves up into the corner there and taps the point. the first crit op tap in the game so far. The Auto Medic stays concealed, moves up to the stronghold, and then uses the Noospheric network to make the Flamer shoot again. It was another very low scoring roll for the Flamer, but it was still enough to kill the Ravener there. I then activate the Tremor Scythe to burrow out of the tunnel, leaving me with 2 APL. I then tap the central objective for another upload point, and then I charge, able to get a double charge into the already activated Auto Medic and the yet to activate Melter. I don't fight. Oh, and the Tremor Scythe is able to do all of that from conceal. The Melter falls back onto the point remaining concealed. The Venom Spitter charges, manages to be within 1 inch, whilst also being on the tunnel. We have to move the comms device ever so slightly. Still has Distend Dorsal Sacs up, still has Gaze of the Omnisire against him, has only charged but isn't going to fight, so has only used 1 APL. Heavy Bolter Servitor moves, dashes to be within 2 of the Wrecker. Reacher Servitor moves up, stays concealed, and uses the Noosphere network for free thanks to the reserve cells, taking them down to 2 reserve cells left, and makes the Heavy Bolter flip to an engage order and shoot the Wrecker. It took a CP reroll, taking the Battleclade down to 2 CP command points remaining, and unfortunately the Wrecker absolutely aced his saves because he saves on a 4 instead of 5 like everybody else. So yeah, 0 damage. That is a big deal. The final activation for the Raveners has to be the Prime, of course, and seeing at what the Battleclade have left, the Raveners will get 1 counteract. So before deciding what the Prime has to do, we have to decide what the counteract wants to be. The Prime charges the Flame Servitor and rolls 4 misses, meaning he can't kill the Battleclade in the first attack, so has to use his 3rd APL to kill him with the 2nd attack, which means that he doesn't manage to tap the point. Luckily, of course, we know we have the counteract coming, but that might not be what we decide to do. And he takes 7 damage total. The Underseer jumps up, shoots down, deals 6 damage, which isn't great, and then uses one of his dash abilities to make the Servitor dash forwards. For the counteract, I choose to fight with the Fell Talon, which kills the Melter, and I rolled well enough, thanks to Ceaseless for being on the tunnel, to take no damage. As the final activation, the Techno-Archaeologist moves inside. I'll leave him up here so you know where he's positioned. Shoots with his pistol and actually kills the Tyranid Prime nice and easily. And that is the final activation of turn 2. As the Raveners, aka the only player with any upload points to decide whether or not to score, I choose not to score them, leaving both of my points on the board there. Battleclade got 2 victory points for planting both beacons there and there, and I get 2 for storm objectives over here. Going into the 3rd turning point, the Raveners win the roll-off again and obviously choose to take it, putting them up to 4 command points, and the Battleclade up to 3 command points. Into the strategic gambit step, and the tunnel goes down. It is not quite touching the Wrecker, so he will not get any benefits from that yet. The Battleclade play Incantation of the Iron Soul, which is all damage of 3 or more. On the roll of a 5 up, is reduced by 1 damage. Seeker of Divine Arcana from the Techno-Archaeologist puts Gaze of the Omnisire onto the last model that doesn't have it. Okay, with you fully prepped to know what's about to happen in turn 3, let's get back to me and discuss how turn 2 went. Okay, so obviously I made a big play there with Writhe out of sight. You might think the word out of sight means you can't come up and then be aggressive with it, but it simply says you perform the burrow action, and burrow can be off or onto the board. I chose to use it to get onto the board. If I have to be honest, I think that is going to be a staple play. Now, of course, you can't use it all the time. As I've said before, you really don't want to be charging into elite with no rerolls up. It's not going to go well for you. But I had decided I was willing to invest a lot of CP command points into that action. I was going to use the command point to use the ability to burrow in the strategic phase, which means I then had full range of movement for my activation, because of course I used it after I knew I had initiative. And I was willing to just spend all my command points on rerolls at that point, because I had nothing else I really wanted to do in the turn, and I knew that I had the additional command point from my leader and his synaptic link. That then really set the tone for the battle. It really put the Battleclade on the back foot, and whilst I was busy fretting over what my prime was going to do and how he was then going to deal with that entire scenario, everything else just worked after that, because I won initiative, and because I then had a really strong play and a double kill, and then the Battleclade had to use a bunch of activations to try and deal with the Fell Talon that was now in his back lines. It took the pressure off of everything else on the board. Suddenly, I ended up only getting a single counteract, which is, you know, a 5 model team into a 10 model team. I should have expected to get 4, but things went very well for me. I think the Battleclade made some good moves. The way they moved up and managed to score their beacons, and it pushed up the Flamer on one side and the Breacher on the other, and they were really waiting for me to decide what to do with the prime, but I kept managing to hold fire, because I really didn't want to go in there, which held true because I then died as soon as I did, right? Which is how Raveners work. If you make an incorrect move, you will get killed. Saving on 5s sucks. I hate saving on 5s. I can't roll a 5 to save my life. Or my Ravener's life, it turns out. He was baiting me left and right. I finally went for that kill on the Flamer that had planted the beacon. Fluffed the roll completely. I rolled 3 2s and a 1 and only 1 4. It was like, what's going on? This should have been like the easiest kill in the game. It wasn't, so I couldn't tap the point. Had to use that as a... I didn't tap the point, did I? So I'm straight up down a VP because I didn't manage to get an easy kill, because the dice screw you sometimes. That's the game, right? But ultimately, that big double charge from tunnel point 2 defined the game for me. And I think, looking at the scenario now, I have 3 Raveners on the board. I think I can quite easily continue to storm the objective for the rest of the game, and then I can keep the Tremor Scythe and the Venom Spitter on the central objectives, so that I can tap it at least one more time. And I don't know if I'm going to max score the crit op, but I'm definitely going to score 4, and I think that's a win. I think also because the Battleclade has used up all of its space for plant beacons on one side of the board, he has snookered himself, we would say, because to now score the rest of plant beacons, he has to come towards my side of the board where I've got 3 Raveners. Okay, let's go back to it and let's see what I decide. The Wrecker taps the point, opts to engage obviously, charges, gets in there with both of them, only has 1 activation left and chooses to fight the Gun Servitor. Unfortunately, a bit of a poor roll, and so he takes 4 damage from a crit, which got reduced by 1 because of his damage reduction, and leaves the Gun Servitor alive on 1 health after only landing 2 crits. But tying them both up is exactly the goal here. Techno-Archaeologist jumps down, taps the point, shoots the Venom Spitter, only getting a single crit through, because of course, thanks to my faction equipment, I can retain 1, therefore I can retain 2. Venom Spitter taps the point, uses up his distended dorsal sacs to shoot the Underseer, kills the Underseer with an amazing roll, best of the game so far, and then passes for his 3rd APL. Gun Servitor falls back, only just able to make it outside of an inch of the Wrecker, swapping to engage, of course. Tremor Scythe fights and kills the Auto Medic, and then stays on Conceal, because his special ability is that he can charge on Conceal, goes into the Techno-Archaeologist, kills the Techno-Archaeologist, leaving him on 12 wounds remaining. Flamer falls back, just get on the point, doesn't have the APL to tap it. The counteract from the Wrecker kills the Gun Servitor. Finally, the Breacher Servitor places a beacon and then moves just inside. I scored 2 for storm objectives, they scored 1 more for plant beacons. Okay, so at the end of the turn 3, I think one of the big things that lent things towards me there is, again, I got not a double kill, I failed the kill, but I got a double tie-up, and that's all I needed, really. It means that suddenly they lose the ability to plant beacons and tap points, and they don't really have the activations left to start playing around with their new spheric network. There's not much else to say. Let's just see the obvious results of turn 4 and discuss the final. Going into the final round, going into the final turn, for initiative we both roll a 1, which means finally the Battleclade win initiative and choose to go first. Battleclade pay 1 for Duty of Reclamation, which gives them a command reroll when they're on any objective, and they also play Prioritize Acquisition on their own objective, which will give them +1 to the control stat and +1 to their attack stat of melee weapons on their home objective. Raveners up at 6 CP spend nothing. Creature moves to within 2, shoots its Lascutter at close range, and kills the Tremor Scythe. Wrecker charges, fights, kills, taps the point. Takes 3 damage, taking him down to 13 health remaining. Final activation of the game, the Venom Spitter taps the point, moves so he gets visibility, shoots and manages to one-shot the Breacher Servitor, meaning that in the final activation, Battleclade get tabled. Okay, so the final result there ended up being 20 to the Raveners to 6 for the Battleclade. Now, as I mentioned before, as Raveners, I had not beaten the Battleclade before, yet they'd always been quite close, so dice could have made it swing either way previously. But on this one, smashed it. The absolute key, I mentioned it when it happened, but this was the first time I had used Slither Out of Sight, or Writhe Out of Sight, whatever it's called, where you get to burrow outside of your activation. In the past, I've really struggled with the Raveners trying to figure out when you should burrow, because that essentially makes you a 2 APL team, and I had only just discovered that you could do this outside of activation as an offensive move, as opposed to the way it's implied that it has to be a defensive move. That completely swung the game. It got me a charge, it got me a double kill, and it then meant, yes, the Fell Talon died, but he had to spend half of his team getting that kill. So suddenly his activations have been used up, killing one of my guys, and he's lost 2, and it just puts the rest of my decision making for that turn, and then the rest of the game, in a far easier place. I suppose the only negative is obviously that I didn't get as many counteracts as Raveners normally would, I suppose. But at the same time, odd as it might sound, yes, you're a 5-model team, but if you are actually getting that many counteracts, you're not killing enough. I've really struggled with Raveners to figure out whether you should be holding them back and basically playing the tunnel game, making them very slow, or if you should be ignoring the tunnel and speeding up and seeing what happens. Of course, the speeding up means you don't get the redundancy of your resiliency of rerolls, but if you're playing such a slow game, what are you doing? Like, how do you win that? The obvious thing you have to consider when playing Raveners is, okay, that's great, but what happens when you play them into the most popular teams, aka Marines, where if you go off your point and you don't have any rerolls, it kind of doesn't matter that you get a kill, because you're then going to die far quicker. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not saying that this, I think the Writhe Out of Sight ability is going to be used in every single game into any 8-wound team, yeah. Into Elite, I don't know how you're playing the Ravener team. Obviously, I'm speculating here. I have nothing to say against Battleclade and against 10-wound teams. I think that once I figured out the tech for Writhe Out of Sight, I think I'm using that into every single team, and I think I'm getting a double kill, and I'm swinging the activation advantage to me, and I'm fine with losing a model. It's in their back lines, it's disrupting all of their movement, no issues. Playing them into AOD, I genuinely don't know how Raveners would beat AOD, and you do have to keep in mind, AOD is the most popular team. If you're going to tournaments, you will play AOD. And if you're just playing casually, again, you will play AOD. So there's no way to skip that concept of an elite team that has duelist. And I really don't know what Ravener do into that, because you don't have rerolls. You aren't statistically rolling 5 hits. So what do you do? Anyway, these are clearly just things I'm considering. I guess I have to play them into AOD next and see how that actually plays. Alright, well, thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you thought about this. Don't forget, I've got merch and t-shirts and Hydratus Dominatus and all the different equipment things that you can check out if you liked anything you saw in the video. Alright, see you in the next videos for Typhon. Bye.